Well, good day, everybody. I am Abdi Lajavardi, your host of the Education for a Better World. So, welcome to another session of Education for a Better World. Today, I have a wonderful guest that is joining us. Professor Ashley Love is one of my dear friends and colleagues that is joining us today. So, welcome, Ashley. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. My
Yeah.
pleasure. Actually, what I like to start with is get to a little bit about you, to get to know you. I mean, I know you, but I want the audience to get to know you. So, if you don't mind, share with them, where were you born, how your journey got you to this point.
um, I am from Starkville, Mississippi, and it's a college town in Mississippi. If you are unfamiliar with it, it's where Mississippi State University is located. So, of course, like in any part of Mississippi, you wouldn't think fashion. But I think what uh, had drawn me to it. I always created like fashion illustrations. I didn't realize that I was doing that, but I always like drew people and drew clothes. But also my mom also would always get Ebony and Jet magazines. And if you are unfamiliar with Ebony and Jet, it was like the magazines for black, well, like the African American population. So they were both based in Chicago, Illinois. So, of course, Ebony came every month, but Jet always did like weekly, publications. So in both, they will always have like sections about like fashion, and like in Jet they will have Jet Beauty of the Week. But in Ebony they will always have like different fashion shows and things like that, where they would just take pictures of that. And also they had this thing called Ebony Fashion Fair, where it was like they traveled, like a traveling fashion show. So I would always look at Ebony magazines and look at all the fashion sections, but of course I would always just draw. Like I said, didn't realize that I was doing that. So I think probably by my 11th grade year, that's when I was interested. I was like, okay, yeah, I think I want to do fashion. I didn't realize that that's what I wanted to do until everybody was like, yeah, you always draw clothes and you always do this, you always do that. So when I looked it up, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. So went to Mississippi State, um, which, like I said, was in my hometown, and I majored in art. But they had a fashion program, but it wasn't, you know, it was more, I guess, geared towards merchandising. Like they had design, but it was like, I guess the merchandising part was very, successful on campus. Beside, instead of the design, so everybody was like, "Yeah, go to another school for design." So, got my BFA in fine arts, and then I got my MFA and at Savannah College of Art and Design, and I think that's you know what really opened my horizons when it came to fashion, because it was a lot of hands-on stuff, and I guess because like with the MFA, and I don't know about any other majors, but I know with fashion, an MFA is kind of the highest degree attainable. So it's like you have your master's, it's like a master's and a doctorate all in one, if that makes sense. Um, so it was like we, did everything because we had MA and MFA. So I guess MA was just like, the Master of Arts, but with Master of Fine Arts, like we did everything with fashion. But of course, we also had teaching internships. So it was like we had a lot of reviews to do that. And it was like, it was intense. I'm just going to say that. It was very intense, but it really helped me, um, you know, in my field, especially when it came to like freelancing and entrepreneurship and all that, because a lot of us were already freelancing while we were in school. And so after I finished, even though I continued to freelance, um, because at first I wanted to be in the industry and then teach afterwards, but of course it was another plan for me. So I still freelance, but I kind of started teaching almost after. It was maybe like 2 or 3 years after, and I've been teaching since. Um, And I mean, I love it. I love, interacting with my students and, just telling them of all the things, about fashion that they could do. So,
Well, maybe that's a good place to start. So,
yeah.
uh, obviously, there are many people that are watching this show, and
Hmm.
maybe we should, dive into what are the areas that individuals can be exposed with, a fashion degree, and what are some of the pathways
Right. S-
students can consider, you know?
Okay. So you have, and of course, you don't really realize this. I'm sorry, I don't know if it's allergies or what is my nose, but you have different, uh, I don't want to say different, but it's like when you get in school, you'll see fashion design and then fashion merchandising. And design is, of course, where you design the clothes. But merchandising is basically like when you're selling the clothes or you're a buyer, things, anything like that. So it's different fields that you can do. So, of course, there's a fashion designer, you have fashion illustrator. You can also, be like a magazine editor, copywriter. Um, Fashion journalism is another one. I'm trying to think because it's like a long list of stuff. Of course, fashion professor if you want to do that. Um, but it's like, and I didn't realize like how much you could do in fashion. But there's a lot of stuff that you can do in fashion. Like if you want to touch up, like pictures, like like there's fashion photography as well if you want to do that. And then of course if you want to touch up, fashion photos, there's opportunity for that as well. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do, and I am going to say that it's very busy, very intense, it's fast paced, no matter what it is that you do. Now, and I was just going to say, like, since I've been teaching and since I've been in the field, you do have some people where I guess they would do it with no, I guess, no fashion degree or no fashion background or whatever. But of course, sometimes it could be family because there are people who come from like family background where they like their family members were seamstresses, and so that's how they were introduced in it. And then of course they became apprentices or they did internships, whatever, and then built their brand from there. But I would always say to get the education, like go to school, learn everything that you need to learn because that's where you're really going to learn everything about design. Um, and also it'll kind of help you network um, and like just get your foot out there.
Now, it's interesting.
Hmm.
You mentioned about how you became interested in fashion, and you were looking at the Japanese news paper that was coming to your town, and that's
Hmm.
how your interest was developed.
Hmm.
Now, when you look at in general, what things make something to be in fashion and something to be out of fashion. Every time that there is a award that they give in Hollywood, they
Hmm.
recognize the most fashionable people, and then they have a fashion police that will start critiquing
Right.
ones that didn't follow a certain protocol of fashion. Can you
Hmm.
share something with the audience, and for your perspective, you being an expert in this area, some general aspects that we can all become a better fashion into it?
Okay, so and this is another career field. You have what is called a fashion forecaster.
Okay.
So, most of the time, well, all the time, I hate to say most of the time, but like a lot, you will have, I guess, where people like, follow different fashion trends. And it's funny how like people always, thinks that they think that it's from celebrities when actually it's really from everyday people. You'll have people who just like watch everyday people, especially teenagers or like in certain demographics, how they dress, how they look. And then if they see those trends becoming popular, then that's how, those trends develop. But then, of course, like I said, you also have, where they look at celebrities and see what they're wearing and all of that. So that's kind of basically how I guess you look at the different trends with fashion forecasting. Like I say, you have people who will kind of look to see like what trends are becoming very, very popular. And they also kind of predict what trends are going to be in season for like the next fashion season, sometimes up to 2 years in advance.
Wow.
What fashion trends are going to be it for whatever fashion season.
Okay.
Like a lot of people don't really know that, but yeah, like there are different websites that are used in the industry. One popular one is WGSN. And I know WGSN, they predict trends for up to 2 years. So they're already looking at, because right now I think they're on autumn winter 24, even though we're now in 22. Like it's summer, spring summer, but they have already predicted uh spring summer autumn winter of 24.
Wow.
And then you also have Women's Wear Daily, where they show different fashion trends and different things on the runway um, that they're predicting is going to be in season, for the fashion season.
Now I know that I've heard this from many people from all over the world that they say a lot of economy is really indebted to the ladies, because if it wasn't because of the ladies, I guess most of the economy wouldn't happen. And a good indication is if you go to a department store, you see two-thirds of it is allocated for the ladies, and maybe there are small segment
Hmm. Hmm.
is for the men, and that's where usually very few things changes. I mean the suits for the men, when you look at it in the last 100 years,
Hmm.
had like several versions of it, of course, but very little changes. Um, but in case of ladies, there is like every day something new is coming out. Uh, Can you put some light on that? And I don't want to criticize, and I'm
Oh no,
glad
no,
the economy is going well.
right.
We all want the economy to go well. So ladies, go out there and shop and support these merchandises. Go ahead, please.
So I'm happy that you touched on this because like they're doing like a lot of stuff with men. They're like how they've branched out with women's wear, they're doing it with men's wear too.
Oh,
So like in the past with menswear, you always see the tailored suits and then of course the athletic wear. So they still have the tailored suits, but now they have like the casual dress, then of course the athletic wear. They now also have like big and tall for men. So that it's like a lot of they're doing a lot of stuff with menswear as well. But I guess is what you were just saying, you really don't see it as much as women's wear because of course with women's wear you see like everything um from um standard size. And when it comes to the sizing, I'm just gonna touch on it a little bit. So like when it comes to sizing, you have the standard sizing and then you have plus. So like at first they really didn't touch on plus. So now like plus size is a big thing now. So they'll have the different sizes for like standard, which is I think up to like a 6. And like a lot of people don't really know this, but when it comes to plus, like a size 8 is now considered plus. And when I tell people that, they're like, wait, huh? What? But that's small. So like, and even if you look in at magazines, they'll have a plus size person, but of course they're very small. And that's because in the fashion industry, a size 8 is now considered plus size now, which is crazy. But they have kind of, touched on a lot of stuff and kind of broken it down and like, but they like I said, they're doing the same thing with menswear and they're doing it with children's wear as well, where you have like, of course, boys, girls, and then you have the girls, um, I guess extra large or boys husky or, things like that. So it's more stuff with menswear now than in the past. But they are branching out with a lot of that stuff. But I do get a lot of men where they're like, okay, we see all things for women, but what about the men's?
right.
Um, and I don't want to say that it depends on what store you shop at, but like I do know that they are like bringing more menswear to the forefront because a lot of men are now exploring fashion as well.
Well, I think that really is. The more we
Yeah.
understand
Hmm.
value something, I guess, then that's what it makes the market to go that way. And
Right.
you're absolutely right. More men paying attention to
Hmm.
fashion today than they did, 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
Uh, and you know, and
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah. Uh-oh.
yes.
Okay.
Well, one of the maybe another question I wanted to ask you is on regards to students that now have decided, okay, fashion is an area that I'm looking to get involved with.
Hmm.
And you shared some of the pathway career wise that people can explore.
Hmm.
Uh, can you give us some perspective on okay, what kind of challenges and or opportunity lays in front of individuals if they gone in this path and now graduated, and maybe some advice on how they can position themselves where they can be among the most successful people like yourself.
Okay. So I know when I started out, they used to have what was called home ec, because my mom was she took a lot of home ec classes where they would sew clothes and all of that. Well, by the time I got in school, well, in high school rather, by the time I started high school, they took all of that away.
Unfortunately.
Um, so I really didn't start sewing until um I was in grad school, and of course we had to do it because we had to create our own collections. So some of us, and I'm trying to think like when I was in school, because of course it's kind of like this now. Like you, some will like go out and because I know now they have where's a internship class. So like in addition to like the classes where they learn how to create their own patterns, they learn to sew like do different techniques in sewing. They learn couture, um, knitwear, swimwear. They learn all of that. So in addition to that, they also, I think it's like towards the end, like once they finish, um, so they'll have internship classes where they have to, of course, look for uh, a place where they could do their internship. And now I'm going to stress this. The way the internships are now, and I'm really happy about this, is that once you do your internship, you have to learn, they have to teach you everything it is about the industry. Because in the past, um, there were a lot of people who would do internships and they didn't learn anything toward their field, but they always ran errands. So they were like, okay, I didn't learn anything, but I had to get coffee, or I had to get this person's dry cleaning, or I had to do this. So now they have changed it to where they have to teach you those industry standards. You have to learn everything, industry related. It has to be hands on. And then, of course, you have to get school credit for it. So I am very happy that they're doing that.
And I think if I may mention,
Hmm.
my experience has been that has a lot to do with the university
Hmm.
that actually creates those internships, and then
Mm.
how they partner with the industry, and then how they monitor so that everybody can benefit from internship, but
Right,
that it has that structure like you mentioned, so people
right.
are using this as a learning opportunity, as a
Hmm.
experience that they gain to
Hmm.
start off their career. uh,
Right.
at the same time, it's good for the industry because they are exposing people that are getting excited about entering the field, and they're going to be
Yes.
competent
Yes.
future employees.
Yes.
And the university will benefit because of the success of their graduates. So
Hmm.
it works very well, but it does have a lot of requirement that makes everybody work very diligently and have that structure in place. You
Yes.
bringing that up because while internship can be a really important tool,
Hmm.
variety of fields, not only in fashion, but in
Right.
but it requires it to have a really good structure. When there is a good structured internship, it has a lot of value. So that's
Right.
great. That's great. Now,
Yeah.
on the same aspects, I wanted to ask you about mentorship, right? And
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you about when you were going through your career and your studies and
Hmm.
throughout life, uh,
Hmm.
I'm sure you had some mentors, and if you did, how did you find those mentors, and how did they play a role in your life? And then maybe talk about the fact that now you're in position, maybe you're mentoring other people. What
Right.
do you do, and
Right.
what is the value of the mentorship? Is it something that people should look for, and when is it the right time to do so?
Well, besides my professor, I think the one person that I really had as my mentor was a friend of mine when I was in grad school. She was also a fashion designer. Um and she did everything at home on her own. Um but like I met her because I was going through a review and I needed to get some stuff fixed. And a person that she was a sewing technician at our school, she knew um this friend of mine personally. So that's how I was introduced to her. And so she fixed a lot of my stuff, but at the same time, like she was very knowledgeable in fashion as well as in sewing. Um and like she would always give me like really good advice. And then there were times where like if she did photo shoots, like most of the time I was at her house because like I said, she had her own in-house studio. And I always, came over to do work for her. And so like I learned a lot from her. And one thing, she'd always talk about was how, she had honestly been well, she had been sewing since the age of 7, I do believe, and she learned it from her grandmother. And so then of course it progressed to her like basically creating, her own clothing as well as clothing for other people. So I would say that she was like one of my biggest mentors. So when it comes to like mentorship, like with current students as well as students who are interested, so you can look at, different professors or different people from your school, but at the same time, if you know somebody who kind of designed, on their own and just doing their own thing, they could be a mentorship. Like they could be a mentor to you as well. And there are some times where like you'll have different people. Like if you go to school for fashion, you'll have different people who will come to the school and talk about what they do in the field as well. And they'll give their contact information and they could be your mentor as well. So yeah, like because I know like at at the school where I teach at, like we always like there are always people that we meet, and we'll get their information and they'll want to come to the school and talk to the students. um and the students of course will try to intern with them or just talk to them about working in the industry.
Absolutely. Now, one thing I have experienced, and I asked this question, from you because I have, my interaction and interviewing various, individuals.
Hmm.
When the mentorship comes in, um, I know many people talk about, how important it has been in their life, in their career, and most successful people, they talk about the fact that they are open to mentoring other people.
Hmm.
I think it's important for people to recognize mentorship. It is a little different than like an internship program or going to school and such because it is really can be fluid because you
Hmm.
may not have as much structure into it, but
Hmm.
you have access to have a sounding board or a benchmarking that
Right.
if it is a process that you can think about how to limit it, where it's not too much imposing on the individual, but when you are with a given person, a mentor, you can maximize your time. So you're there very structured and very ready
Mm-hmm.
to ask maybe three, four important things for you. Maybe not things that you could research on your own, or things
Right, right.
could learn from a book or research or interaction with your teachers and others. But this is a really an opportunity to find out about somebody that really has spent a lot of time accomplishing many things, and
Right.
now you get a chance to like kind of benchmark or just use that as a sounding board to kind of redefine your final projects, if you would. You know? I think that would be maybe a good way. And I wanted to ask you, what is your opinion about this?
Well,
Uh,
about I guess when it comes to mentorship, like the different questions and all of that.
yeah,
Is
and
that
the fact
okay?
that, like somebody like you, well, you have a lot of students, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if all the students that you have and they
Mm-hmm.
all came to you and wanted you to mentor them, obviously would be very difficult from a time consumer, the
Right.
consumption that it has from you and all the responsibilities that you have. So you could do this for a limited number of people, and you could do it in a way that you can share your insight and information, but yet allow you to take care of other things that you want to do, the growth and responsibilities that you have for you,
Right.
right?
Right. And I guess because like in that case, it like I said, if it's a lot, and I don't want to say, oh, I could turn that into a class, but at the same time, it's like you can't help but turn it into some type of class where you can meet, like maybe on Saturdays or Sundays, and uh, like show them everything and talk about whatever. Because most of the time when it comes to mentorship and stuff like that is mostly like outside of school, where you get to like really like look at if that person invites you, I guess, to, you know, their space. You really look at how they design, their element, and like just really get a feel of
Right.
what they're doing. So like I said, if it's a large group, then it may have to like be a group thing where you kind of like just say like, okay, well, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing. This is how I've done this. I'm doing this way, or yeah, I'm doing this for a particular client, blah, blah, blah. And then you just like, it's really kind of a way for that mentor to open up to that student and show everything that they're doing. And then, of course, it gives the student an opportunity to ask whatever questions. And most of the time, when it comes to like mentors, they don't mind asking, like, they don't mind you asking a lot of questions because that's what, they're there for. They want you to ask all of those questions so
Absolutely.
you can get a feel of what it is that you want to do. And like, one thing that I've also noticed, like, since teaching, um, like there are a lot of students where they're like, okay, yeah, I want to do this. Like, let's just say if they want to do design, like, okay, yeah, I want to design this, I want to design this. Um, and then once they get in the program, like in the design program, and they take all of those design classes and they see that it's not as easy as they thought it was going to be. And then afterwards they end up changing. They still want to do fashion, but they end up going into another, like a different avenue uh in fashion. So like they'll either, end up in marketing or fashion photography, or, something like that. They'll still do fashion, but it's a different area now because, they see that design is not as easy as they thought. And I don't want to say that it's because of, like, because of course the different design shows where they film people doing stuff like making all of these garments. They're like, okay, yeah, I think I want to do that. This is what I want to do. And then when they get there and they see all of the work that it takes to create this one garment, they're like, ooh, I didn't know that it was going to be like this. So,
Well, that now brings us to another question, because it seemed like the classes that you have is a
hmm
lot of fun, and
hmm
I am excited about what I'm learning about fashion and fashion design and merchandising. So
Mhm.
maybe as really some help for other teachers and professors in general, and in particular for fashion and merchandising, what are some of the things that you do to make your classes fun and interactive? Because I know you're a very popular professor, so
Yeah.
share with the group, what is your secret?
Um, I think with me, if I could talk about me, like one thing, I always like to talk and interact with my students, but I also share a lot of things that I've seen in the industry. Where it's like my own personal stories or something that I know that happened to somebody else. Like I always share those different fashion stories because it's one thing when you're in class learning something, but of course it's like when you hear something like hear about something from somebody that's in the field, that's when it like everybody's like, whoa, wait a minute, stuff like that happens. So I always share, my knowledge. And then I'm always quick to say, like, okay, well, yeah, when you learn, like when you get in the industry, you'll probably experience this or you'll probably see this, so I'm always sharing all of that background. In addition to that, like when it comes to like a lot of my students, they always like they are quick to come and ask me questions. Um, and I always talk to them about whatever. Like they are quick to just come up to me and just like talk to me about. So I always just like talk to them. And I don't want to say like because I know this is not with every professor, but um, and I guess just like I don't judge or I don't try to judge, which I would never do that. So like if they just have some like have a question or just situation, I'm quick to just, listen to them, give my insight on it. But I also like whatever project, I try to make it fun. I try to, get it to where like they can definitely learn from it. But at the same time, if they need help, they know that I'm always there. So, or else I'm always watching them. And if I see them doing something wrong, that's when I'll come be like, oh, no, 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 this is what you're supposed to do. So they know that they can count on me with a lot of stuff.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Maybe you could share with us as what you perceive as being some of the opportunities as well as challenges in the fashion industry, if you don't mind.
So, of course, with the opportunities with internships, there are some companies that offer apprenticeships. And apprenticeships is, of course, like upon graduation, you can work for that company. Some like it just depends. Sometimes 6 months, sometimes a year to get that experience. I know with J.C. Penney, I don't know if they still do this, but I know there was a time where they would offer like a design trainee program. Um, and you would come to Dallas because they are in Plano, which is like another part of Dallas. So you will come and you'll learn everything about uh, designing with JC Penney. Like you'll learn, of course, like all the computerized stuff, as well as how they cut everything out and sew it. And then in addition to that, you will have the opportunity to create your own collection with JC Penney. And so if everything goes well with that design training program, they would hire you to work for the company. I don't know if they still do that, but I know in the past they did that. Reebok at one point in time had like a design apprenticeship as well. Um, and I think theirs was a year, like you had to go to Boston, and they'll tell you like how much you were going to get paid because you were going to get, you know, hourly pay. And I think you were also going to get like a parking spot or something like that. Um, but you learned everything about designing for Reebok. I'm sorry if you're hearing thunder, it's about to rain in my area. So I apologize for that. But